my God, why have you forsaken me?" These haunting words spoken by Jesus as he hung dying on a Roman cross have echoed through history. For many, they represent a cry of abandonment, suggesting that in his final moments, Jesus felt utterly alone. But what if that interpretation is misguided? What if those words weren't a cry of despair, but a deliberate reference, a signal to something far deeper, something his audience would have immediately recognized? For centuries, this moment has been seen as the point where Jesus lost connection with God, a moment when suffering became unbearable. However, this interpretation arises from a modern perspective rather than the context of Jesus' world. In first century Judea, scripture was not just read, it was memorized, recited, and lived. Quoting a line was more than just uttering a sentence. It pointed to an entire passage. The Psalms in particular were deeply woven into Jewish life. They served as prayers, songs, and emotional expressions for every situation: joy, fear, grief, and hope. In times of suffering, one would naturally reach for the Psalms instead of crafting new words. So when Jesus cried out from the cross, he wasn't speaking at random. He was quoting the opening line of a specific psalm, one his audience would have known by heart. That psalm is Psalm 22, which begins exactly as Jesus quoted it. My God, why have you forsaken me?" It starts in deep anguish, raw, honest, and unfiltered. The psalmist describes mockery, being surrounded by enemies, and physical anguish. "All who see me mock me. They pierce my hands and my feet." The imagery is striking, eerily similar to crucifixion. Yet the psalm doesn't conclude there. A shift occurs. The voice of despair transforms into remembrance. The psalmist reflects on God's past faithfulness to him and to his ancestors. Then the tone dramatically changes. What began as a cry of abandonment evolves into a declaration of trust. The suffering is not the end of the story. By the conclusion of Psalm 22, the voice has shifted from despair to victory. The psalmist proclaims that God has heard him, that deliverance has arrived, and that future generations will hear about it. So when Jesus spoke those words on the cross, he wasn't expressing a loss of faith. He was placing his suffering within a narrative, a story that transitions from pain to redemption. He demonstrated that even in the darkest moments, God remains present. Suffering does not signify abandonment, and faith does not require pretending everything is okay. Perhaps most importantly, he illustrated that it's okay to pray from the depths of despair. Scripture provides us with language not only for joy, but also for pain. Because the prayer Jesus chose in his final moments wasn't a prayer of defeat, it was a prayer of trust in a God who hears, remembers, and delivers.